Hello, this video is going to show you how to insert the ruffle into the collar of the Ramona dress from Spaghetti Western Sewing. I'm going to start off by showing you a finished sample because I think it will help you understand the overall finished look. So this is a dress version, and here you'll see we have the yoke, and I've sewn the ruffle in a contrasting fabric here. The reason I designed this construction is specifically so that makers would have the ability to use contrasting fabric and have it peek out over the top of the yoke. I also personally really prefer a thinner fabric on a ruffle. A lot of construction methods for an elastic casing with a ruffle actually have the fabric doubled over, and I thought that would be too thick at your neck, and I thought a single layer of fabric would work much better with a wider variety of fabrics. So those are some of the reasons I dreamed up this construction method, and that's why it is a little bit more complicated than your typical construction, but I think it's worth it. So to give you a better look again, here it is, the outside. Here are my two seams to make the elastic channel, and the here's the inside. So this piece is the collar ruffle, this pink part, and then the yoke is here. So let me show you how to do it. Okay, so I have my assembled yoke piece. Here's the inside with the top pressed over, my tag, and then my seam guide right here that I stitched. And then I have my collar piece assembled. So this is flipped right side out, and this is what the inside should look like. You can see the right side of the fabric is this yellow wishbone, and then this is the wrong side. Okay, so I'm going to start by grabbing the seam right here for the collar piece, and I'm going to choose, it doesn't matter which side, but just choose one side of your yoke seam, and I'm just going to line them up, line up the seams, and the bottom of my collar piece should line up right at that seam guide. I'm going to go ahead and pin that. You're going to want to pin from the side that you're going to be sewing on. So if I'm pinning here, that means that'll be sewing here and it'll be a little bit blind, but it might look nicer on the outside. Or if I decide to flip it, I can pin from this side, and this is probably what I would do. Pin from this side so that I can make sure that I'm catching the bottom of the collar. Oops. So you have your anchor point pinned between your collar ruffle piece and your yoke. I'm going to work from the inside of the yoke and the ruffle piece, and this is what the outside looks like. I'm pinning this way because I'm going to be sewing this way. So this part is probably the most fiddly part of the pattern, which might take a little bit of adjustment. The collar ruffle isn't designed to be cut on the bias, so that you can use a variety of like trimmings like lace, or you could maybe even use a selvage edge. But if this is causing you a lot of grief and the fabric is not working for you, you might want to consider cutting the collar ruffle on the bias so it has some stretch. I didn't cut this on the bias, and it's quilting cotton, so it doesn't have much stretch. The yoke, on the other hand, is cut on a curve, and this fabric has more stretch, so it might be a little bit fiddly to get them to match up. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because elastic will be put right inside this casing, and it'll all be crumpled up and around your neck. So if you have a couple folds or creases here and there, it's not the end of the world. You won't notice it and nobody else will notice it, but just try your best. So how I like to do it is from my anchor point, I'll kind of walk the fabric out and find a point, and I'll make sure I'm lining up the bottom of my ruffle piece with the basted seam guide I previously sewed. Here again, Around the tag. And there we go. Okay, it's actually matched up pretty good. You can see there's a little bit of gaping at certain parts, but that's nothing I can't distribute. So now I'm just gonna pull it evenly and pin between these points to get it a little bit more even, lining up as I go. Okay, I have it all pinned. Ta-da! I think more pins are not bad at this point, like better safe than sorry. So this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew a seam, edge stitch right along this bottom part. If you're sewing from the opposite side, you can just follow that seam guide as long as you pinned really carefully to make sure that the bottom part of this collar lined right up with that. So here it is sewn together, wrong side, right side. I'm going to go ahead and find a seam, ta-da, and I'm going to put a pin about 1/2 inch, maybe a little more, in front of that, so I know where to stop. And then I'm going to start my seam about 1/2 inch after that. And I'm going to edge stitch the yoke to the ruffle. So this will make a casing, and there'll be a hole right here to insert the elastic. But here's the casing, and I'm going to sew the seam all the way around till I get to my pin. So here it is constructed. Move on to the next step. You'll insert your elastic and then sew this up. Then you'll have your yoke all constructed and you can move on to the next step.